Hello everyone, it's Daniel, Modern Identity Lead at Formula 5. Customer Identity and Access Management, or CIAM, has become crucial for many organizations in today's digital landscape. CIAM is particularly important in industries such as e-commerce, finance, healthcare, and any other sector where businesses interact with customers online. The goal is to create a secure, seamless, and personalized experience for customers while ensuring compliance with privacy regulations. In this video, we are going to discuss two CIAM solutions offered by Microsoft in the Azure cloud: Azure Active Directory B2C and Microsoft Entra External ID, or Entra ID for customers. I will do my best to help you decide which one is the right choice to kickstart your journey into customer identity and access management. So let's start. Before we dive into features of both services, it's worth to mention that we can use Azure Active Directory B2C and Microsoft Entra External ID to build secure customer identity and access management, or CIAM, solutions. So we can utilize both, and in this video we are going to talk about Azure Active Directory B2C and its features. We are going to talk about Microsoft Entra External ID and its features, and we will see some differences to understand them, to eventually make up decision which service to choose to start our CIAM journey. So let's move on. Perfect. So let's talk about Azure Active Directory B2C. It's a mature service with rich set of features. Azure AD B2C is on the market for a while, and it established its position as a powerful and secure CIAM solution. Azure Active Directory B2C is a powerful customer identity and access management solution available in the Microsoft Azure cloud. It supports multiple authentication methods such as social identity providers, Facebook or Google, enterprise identity providers like Active Directory, Okta and others, and local accounts using email and password. It allows businesses to customize their user experiences by creating their own user interface and branding, ensuring a consistent and seamless user experience. So this is very important because we can customize the look and feel of the login and registration pages in the Azure AD B2C. It supports MFA, multi-factor authentication, enabling businesses to require additional verification from customers before granting access to their resources. MFA adds an extra layer of security, reducing the risk of unauthorized access. It's very important because nowadays MFA is really popular, it's very important to be used, and with Azure AD B2C we can use different MFA methods like text messages or Microsoft Authenticator app, so using MFA is highly recommended. Azure AD B2C provides analytics and reporting features, allowing businesses to monitor and analyze user activity and gain insights into authentication trends and patterns. This information can be used to improve the user experience and enhance security measures. And this is the example. On the left side, we can see customize a look and feel of the login page. So as we can see, we can adjust the background, we can adjust the logo, we can use CSS file to adjust the colors of buttons and text boxes, but also we can add additional authentication methods. As you can see, there is Google, there is LinkedIn, and also another authentication method. So obviously we have full control over those additional methods here. And on the right side, we can see screenshot from the analytics for Azure AD B2C. So as I mentioned, we can build rich dashboards, so we can check authentications per different flows. We can check failed sign-ins, successful sign-ins, and also we can learn details about those operations. So it's really interesting because we can also see in which of applications secured by Azure AD B2C users log in the most often. So this can be also very interesting from the business perspective to learn to which applications users authenticate the most often. Okay, perfect. So now It's very important to mention that Azure AD B2C is a mature product with rich set of features available to implement secure and scalable SIAM solutions. However, there are some challenges worth discussing before making decision to choose it. So on one side, there are a lot of different kinds of features with Azure AD B2C, but also there are some challenges, and I think it's worth to discuss them in this video. So, what are the challenges with Azure Active Directory B2C? Advanced authentication scenarios implementation. Azure AD B2C provides two ways to implement flows like login or registration. We can leverage user flows and define them directly in the Azure portal. And with this approach, we can define simple flows like login or registration, including calls to external systems, like external APIs. However, user flows are limited in their nature, and we cannot implement advanced user journeys. And when I say advanced user journeys, I mean like we cannot create separated flows for login, like we cannot separate screens, for instance, and collect different data, customize the look and feel, and so on. For this, we have to use custom policies. So instead of using user flows, we have to use custom policies in the Azure Active Directory B2C. Custom policies are XML files which enable implementing advanced scenarios for different kinds of flows like login, registration, or password reset. We have almost full control over each step in the user's authentication journey. However, implementing custom policies requires specialized knowledge and is not so convenient to developers are working with JSON files, for instance. Many developers find it challenging to implement custom policies, and learning curve is quite high. So on the right side, we can see a fragment of such custom policies. So this is XML file with a special structure, of course, and there is broad documentation for Azure AD B2C, but still it can be challenging to implement it by like a developer who is learning about the identity topics. DevOps practices and automation. So nowadays, each modern solution leverages DevOps practices and automation. Automating deployment of custom policies XML files can be challenging in this specific scenario. And I want to underline this, it does not mean it's not possible. It means that when Azure AD B2C was created, DevOps practices were not so broadly adopted and required, especially when it comes to SIAM solutions. So, when it comes to deployment of custom policies or automation for Azure AD B2C, it can be challenging and it requires specialized knowledge. But still, it's possible. We can also automate deployment of those XML files, which are custom policies, and then we can deploy them to different tenants, like development tenant or production tenant. Another challenge can be native device authorization grant support. Modern solutions sometimes require usage of OAuth 2 device authorization grant. This flow enables devices with no browser or limited input capability to obtain an access tokens and complete authentication process on another device. This is commonly seen on smart TV, IoT device, or a printer. Unfortunately, Azure AD B2C does not support this specific flow natively. So it can be challenging. Like if we need to complete authentication operation on our phone for the application that is displayed on our TV, with Azure AD B2C, unfortunately, natively, it's not possible. Native authentication support. We can customize the look and feel of login or registration pages provided by Azure AD B2C using HTML and CSS files. This is what I mentioned before. So we can utilize those files to adjust the background, colors, styles, and so on. But sometimes there is a requirement to avoid user redirection to the web browser on mobile device to complete authentication process. Instead, there is a need to implement native login and registration pages within the mobile application. So this is very important. So sometimes there is this requirement, especially when it comes to mobile applications, to avoid the redirection. So probably some of you know this flow. So you click login button in the mobile application, Then the browser, like Safari on iOS, is opened. The login page is displayed there. We have to provide the username and password there, proceed with MFA possibly, and then we are redirected back to the application. And even if we customize the look and feel of the login page on the Azure AD B2C side, sometimes it's not enough. Sometimes we want to avoid this redirection. So unfortunately, this is not possible with Azure AD B2C as it does not provide any authentication API, which could be used by application developers. So in this specific scenario, we have to always use this redirection. Okay, so now let's talk about Microsoft Entra External ID, the next frontier in customer identity and access management at Microsoft. Before we jump into specific features, very important detail, I would like to clarify that. Currently, there is Microsoft Entra ID, so workforce tenant. It contains employees and the applications and resources that are internal to our organization. And many organizations already use Entra ID or Azure AD in the past, yes? But when it comes to Microsoft Entra External ID, we talk about customers tenant. It represents customer-facing applications, resources, and directory of customers' accounts. A customer tenant is distinct and separate from the workforce tenant. So in this case, we create separate Microsoft Entra tenant for our customers. So now let's talk about some important features supported in Microsoft Entra External ID. Let's start with easy integration with external systems. We can integrate Microsoft Entra External ID with existing systems within an organization like CMS. It's possible to also call external system during user authentication to exchange some data and also include it in the token issued to the application. So it's very important. So right now, even if we keep some data outside of Entra tenant, we can access this data through some API or service and then get this data and include this data in the token that will be issued to the application. So this can be really powerful because we can implement many different kinds of flows. Integration with social accounts. Microsoft Entra External ID provides an easy configuration for integrating with popular social identity providers such as Facebook and Google. More identity providers will be supported in the future. Native authentication support. With the new platform Microsoft Entra External ID, we can choose to utilize Authentication API or the Microsoft Authentication Library for Android and iOS. We have the power to construct engaging sign-up and sign-in journeys. This API-centric approach not only grants the flexibility in design, but also enables the development of highly tailored interactions and flows. So this is about native authentication support. So we can craft it to perfection when it comes to the look and feel of login or registration pages, and there is no browser redirection required. And one more thing, I would like to talk about platform neutral API and native support in Microsoft Authentication Library. So still, we have two possibilities. We can use web-hosted UI. So there is no need to build the UI inside the application. We can still use the redirection pattern. So browser will be opened and from there we will sign in. And also we can adjust the look and feel of the page that will be displayed in the browser. But also we can use native UX. So we have full control over UI within our application, and then there is no redirection. Whole flow, login flow, for instance, is handled inside the application code. So it's really important to mention that still we have this web-hosted UI possibility, and we can adjust it, but also we can use native API inside Microsoft Authentication Library, and then we don't have to make this redirection to the browser, so the user can authenticate there. Perfect. Another big feature is native device authorization grant support. So Microsoft Entra External ID fully supports OAuth 2 device authorization grant. It means that we can use it to implement authentication flows on smart TVs, IoT devices, and printers. This is really big because in this specific scenario, we can complete authentication on mobile device, for instance, and complete this authentication process for the application that we launch on TV, for instance. So that's really, really powerful. Resource management with Microsoft Graph API. Microsoft Entra External ID for customers was designed with keeping automation and DevOps scenarios in mind. This means that using Microsoft Graph API, we can manage resources in Microsoft Entra External ID for customers directory. There are operations supported like creation of user flows, registration of custom extensions, and applying custom branding. It means that we can not only benefit from secure and resilient platform, but also we can use tools like Azure DevOps or GitHub to implement automation and deployment processes for Microsoft Entra External ID. Perfect. So now there is a big question. How to choose between Azure Active Directory B2C and Microsoft Entra External ID? Here is my recommendation. Choose Azure Active Directory B2C when you have immediate need for mature production-ready identity solution. You need to implement advanced authentication scenarios. For example, multi-page registration process with integration with external systems like APIs. In this case, Azure AD B2C will work perfectly for you. You can really create extensive login or registration journeys. You don't need to implement crafted to perfection login or registration pages within your application. That's what I mentioned before. If you do not have strong requirement to implement login page within your application and you are fine with this redirection to the web browser, B2C is for you. You don't have strong requirement for using device code flow to support authentication on devices without web browser available. So, as I mentioned before, this is not natively supported in the Azure AD B2C, but if you don't need this feature, you can still use Azure AD B2C. On the other hand, choose Microsoft Entra External ID for customers when you are starting your journey with SIAM and you are in early stages of production scenarios discovery. You need to implement crafted to perfection login and registration pages inside your application without any browser redirections. So that's what I mentioned before. If you want to implement login or registration pages fully inside your application without any redirections, then Microsoft Entra External ID for customers is for you. You want to benefit from the new SIAM features that will be added to the new platform. And here we have to be realistic. Microsoft Entra External ID is the SIAM solution for the future when it comes to Microsoft. And when it comes to Azure Active Directory B2C, probably at some point in the future, it will go into the maintenance mode and no new features will be added to this service. You want to benefit from the modern DevOps practices for your identity solutions. Then also choose Microsoft Entra External ID for customers because it was designed keeping DevOps practices in mind. To summarize, the most important question is about requirements and a need for advanced, complex authentication scenarios. If you need to implement advanced, complex authentication scenarios now, and you have clear plan for your production scenarios, then choose Azure Active Directory B2C because it's mature. But if you do not have any advanced scenarios yet, and you are at the beginning of your journey with SIAM, then I recommend checking Microsoft Entra External ID. Okay, perfect. So right now, it's time to see both services in action. Let's start with Azure AD B2C. Once the tenant is successfully created, we can access it directly from the Azure portal. Here is Management Blade for my demo tenant, B2C tenant, and as we can see on the left side, I can access different kinds of features. So I can register applications within this tenant to secure those applications like web applications or mobile applications. I can decide with which identity providers I want to federate. So for instance, I want to provide login with Google or login with Facebook. So this is the place where I can configure it. API connectors. So what I can do, I can say like during the sign-up flow, call external system like API and collect some data and include this data in the token that will be issued to the application. Company branding is the section where we can globally brand our Azure AD B2C tenant, so we can change the background, we can change the logo, and to be honest, it's quite limited, so it's good when we are at the beginning of our journey, but as I mentioned, the real power for the UI customization is behind using custom branding and HTML and CSS files stored on the storage account, for instance, in Azure Cloud, which I will show you. User attributes section is the section where we can decide which user attributes will be collected on the sign-up page, but also we can define custom attributes. So if we want to include some custom data, custom attribute from the external system in the token that will be returned to the application, we can also define this custom attribute under user attributes. And of course, we have section for users. So under users, we can see all the customer accounts that are registered in our Azure AD B2C tenant. As you probably remember, I also mentioned that we have two ways to define authentication flows in the Azure AD B2C. We can use user flows or we can use custom policies, which is available under Identity Experience Framework tab. Let's start with the user flows. So in this section, we can define different kinds of user flows like sign up or sign in, only sign up, only sign in, profile edit, and so on. As you can see, I've already created sign up and sign in flow, but when I click new user flow, here I can select which type of the flow I want to create. Let's say that I want to create sign up and sign in flow, and then the version will be recommended. And now when I click create button, this user flow is being created. So right now I can provide the name. So let's call it test sign up and sign in like this. And of course we want to support email sign up, so local account. We can also decide to use multi-factor authentication, as you can see, and we have multiple methods. It can be email, it can be text message, it can be phone call, authenticator app, and we can decide when to use MFA, always or using conditional access policies. So Azure AD B2C also supports conditional access policies. So we don't have to, make our users to use MFA always. We can trigger MFA only when there is a potential sign-in risk, for instance. Okay, perfect. So let's let's leave it as it is right now, and let's scroll down. As we can see here, we can decide which attributes will be collected during the sign-up flow and which attributes will be returned in the ID token that is returned to the application. ID token or access token, to be more precise. And of course here I can also add more attributes, custom attributes from the section called user attributes I showed you before. So let's say that I want to collect given name and surname, and let's click create button. So now this new flow is being created in the Azure AD B2C, and in a few seconds it's up and running. We can start using this. So if I open this one, you can see that now I can also test this flow by clicking run user flow, but also you can see that we can see all the settings that we configure for this specific user flow. And obviously we can also add languages support, so different languages, so localization is supported in the Azure AD B2C, so we can start using this user flow. On the other side, if I get back, there is Identity Experience Framework section. And as I mentioned, as you probably remember, Identity Experience Framework and custom policies, so those XML files, are used for more advanced scenarios. And today in this video, I will show you such advanced scenario. And in this specific scenario, if we scroll down, we can see all the policies files. To be more precise here, we cannot directly modify those files from the Azure portal. We have to click it, we have to download it, and then modify this file in the Visual Studio Code, for instance, so this XML file. And as I mentioned, we can also prepare DevOps automation for those custom policies to inject parameters automatically and deploy those XML files automatically from Azure DevOps or GitHub to Azure AD B2C. So as you can see, I've already created custom policies here. They are deployed here. And again, what I can do, I can use those custom policies to secure my applications, different kinds of applications like mobile or web applications. Perfect. Another thing I would like to show you is branding, because as you remember, I mentioned there is company branding, which is quite limited when it comes to UI customization. But if we apply the full customization and custom branding for our flows in the B2C, we can host those HTML and CSS files on the storage account, for instance, in Azure, and then attach this branding to the login or registration pages. So as you can see here, I have my AD B2C branding container in the storage account in the Azure cloud, and under the template, I have different kinds of HTML files. And those HTML files are attached to different user journeys in my user flows or custom policies. So I can customize the exception page, identity provider selection, MFA, sign-in page, sign-up page, profile update page, as you can see. And obviously under CSS, I have all the CSS files, so I can also adjust the look and feel of controls, like I can change the color of the buttons, I can modify the look and feel of the text boxes, and so on. So it's really powerful, and it's possible with the Azure AD B2C. And the last thing I would like to show you is monitoring, because as you remember, I mentioned that we can also monitor the whole platform, and this can be really powerful and helpful from the business perspective, because obviously, from the maintenance perspective, we can check what's happening, were there any problems with the authentication for some customers and so on. So from the maintenance perspective and support perspective, it's really helpful. But also from the business perspective, it can be really interesting, because what we can do here, we can, for instance, check from which locations users are using our applications. So from which locations our customers use our applications, and also we can check which applications are used. Yes, so if we have multiple applications, we can also, using those insights, we can see which applications are used the most often. So as we can see, for instance, here we can see that I signed in 3 times recently within last 12 hours from Poland, from Europe here. Under authentications, I can also see the client ID of the application. As you can see, which identity provider was used, so the local one, and also which flow was used here. Yeah, so we can see that we used a custom policy here. So this is only the example. As I mentioned, we can customize also this dashboard here, and it's really powerful, so we can adjust it to our needs. So in this specific scenario, there is Azure Log Analytics Workspace used underneath, and all the logs from the Azure AD B2C are streamed there, so we can, like investigate here. We can check the authentication failures, the reasons, and so on. Really, really powerful. Okay, perfect. So right now, let's see the demo with the application, which is secured by Azure AD B2C. Here is our Formula Healthcare portal, which is demo portal, and it's secured with Azure AD B2C. As we can see, the look and feel is customized. I'm using custom policies here, and also the custom branding with the files I showed you before. And as we can see, I can authenticate here. If I have account, I can sign up. So if I click sign up now, the registration page is displayed. As we can see, the background is customized, the logo is customized, text boxes are customized. So here I can create new account. I've already created one. So here I can sign in. Before I will do it, please notice that also here I can use the Google account, LinkedIn account, and also verified patient login. This one is to be used with verifiable credentials. This is not the topic for this video, but as you can see, this is the scenario, advanced scenario, that is implemented only with custom policies. I cannot implement something like this with user flows in the Azure AD B2C. So custom policies are really helpful in such scenarios. Okay, perfect. So right now I have to type my username and my password, and I can click sign in button. Once I'm successfully authenticated, I'm redirected back to the Formula Healthcare portal, and I'm successfully authenticated. Obviously, there is this greeting right now. I can use my patient verifiable credential. And as I mentioned, this is not for this video, but as we can see, there is this greeting, welcome Daniel. I can access my, patient data in this portal. I can access different operations, and right now application knows my identity. So this is really powerful, and this is where Azure AD B2C can be really helpful. So right now, let's see Microsoft Entra External ID, its features, and also the demo application. Here is Microsoft Entra Admin Center and our Formula 5 customers Microsoft Entra ID for customers tenant. Please note that at the moment of recording this video, tenant is in preview. So some of the features can be a little bit different when the product will go GA. But still, I want to do the overview because I think this will be beneficial for you. So once you sign in to Admin Center and once the customer tenant is created, we can access different kinds of features. So first of all, we can define user flows. So this is something what is similar to the Azure AD B2C. What is the difference? The difference is that there are no more custom policies, so those XML files. So user flows can be directly implemented from there in the Entra Admin Center, or we can use also Microsoft Graph API to do it. And as I mentioned, if we want to craft our UI to perfection, we can also utilize native authentication API and MSL library. Perfect. So as you can see, here are my two flows, which I define. But let me show you the definition of the new flow. So when I click new user flow, this is the place where I can create the new flow. Again, it's quite similar to what we saw in the Azure AD B2C. So here I can again type test sign in, sign up, let's say like this. I want to use email accounts, and here I can define whether I want to use email with password, or maybe I want to use email with one-time passcode that will be sent to this email. So once we define it, then our application will use this method of authentication. So let's leave email with password for now. And below we can decide which user attributes we want to collect from the user. So again, we can define different custom attributes. We can then select them here. So again, I will select given name and surname, and then I can click create button. Before I will do it, please note that there is no additional column with the attributes that will be included in the tokens that will be returned from the Entra External ID, because this is configured in a different way than in the Azure AD B2C. Okay, so for now, let's click create button. And now the user flow is being created. So in this specific scenario, let me get back to the flows and let me select the flow I've already created before. So here under identity providers, we can see that I selected email and password. I'm collecting those attributes here. So when I click attributes, I will go to the user attributes section. So display name, given name, and surname. And also when I will get back to the overview, we can see that there are other settings, like we can add languages and page layouts and so on. So we can customize the look and feel of our user flow. Okay, perfect. So the main difference also between Azure AD B2C and the new Entra ID for customers is that we assign application to the user flow. So under use section, we have applications section. And from there, we can say, okay, this application registered in my Entra ID for customers tenant will use this sign up and sign in flow. So that's the difference, because in the Azure AD B2C, we define different kinds of user flows or custom policies. And then from the application, we had to specify that, okay, use this policy, use that user flow. In the Entra ID for customers right now, it's different. So we assign application to the user flow, and we use the standard authorization endpoint of Entra, and then we can successfully authenticate. So we do not provide this information anymore in the application configuration. Perfect. So I assigned this application to this user flow. And before we will continue, I want to show you a few more things here. So here under favorites, I added different sections to make it much easier to navigate through the tenant. So as you can see, under identity providers, I can select Google and Facebook. And as I mentioned, more to be added in the future, for sure. Under user flows, I can define all the user flows, which I showed you before. And under custom authentication extensions, I can define calls to the external systems. So this is really powerful because here I can subscribe to different kinds of events. Right now it's token issuance start event. And once this event is triggered, I can call external system. So in this case, I'm calling Azure function. Obviously, in this video, we will not do the deep dive into custom authentication extensions, but I want to mention that this is a little bit different than Azure AD B2C because we define custom authentication extensions there in the Entra Admin Center, and there will be different kinds of events in the future. So right now it's token issue and start, but in the future it's planned to add more events, like after MFA succeeded, for instance, or before the token is returned. So it's really powerful. And it's not only about the extending claims in the tokens using external systems, but also those custom authentication extensions can be used to, for instance, validate the input that user provided on the registration page. So we can say like, okay, user provided the city name, and then we will validate this city name against the list of supported cities from which users can register. Really powerful mechanism, and as I mentioned, a little bit different than what we have in the Azure AD B2C. Okay, perfect. So all other features are quite the same like in the Azure AD B2C. We have app registration, so we are registering applications to secure them with Entra External ID for customers. We have section with all users, so we can review customer accounts. And also what is really powerful here is usage and insights tab. So here under application user activity, which is in preview at the moment of recording this video, we can access dashboard where we have different insights about customers' activities. So that's the big difference again against B2C. Because here, directly from the Entra Admin Center, we can access usage and insights. There is no need to have any analytics workspace. So in this specific scenario, I don't have to configure any additional services. I can directly open application user activity under usage and insights, and then I have this dashboard displayed. So here I can see daily user activity over time, monthly users over time, which applications are used recently, yes, from which operating systems. Also I can switch to requests. So here I can see monthly requests over time. Yes, I can see MFA usage, MFA usage success or failure over time. So it can be really helpful, and authentications here. Yes, so I can track what is happening when it comes to authentications, from which operating systems it's used, and so on and so on. Really powerful. As I mentioned, at the moment of recording this video, this is in preview, but in the future it will be definitely enhanced. And it will be much easier to access those insights directly from the Entra Admin Center rather than going to a log analytics workspace. But of course, logs export will be still possible. So if you prefer to export your logs from the Entra ID for customers to log analytics workspace, and then let's say monitor them with Microsoft Sentinel, for instance, from the security perspective, this is still doable. Okay, perfect. So right now, let me show you the demo with the web application that is secured with Microsoft Entra External ID for customers. I would like to also show you company branding and customization. So under company branding section, we can define the look and feel of the login page. So here I select default sign in and I click edit button. And here we have the designer. So here we can select background. So as you can see, I selected background for the login page. Page background color also can be selected here. And what we can also do, we can customize the layout. So either the template will use full screen background or partial screen background. And we can also decide to display header and footer. So here in the footer, for instance, we can include additional links. And also we can adjust the styling. So here we can upload a CSS file and then customize the look and feel of the controls displayed on the screen. So as I mentioned, we can add header and customize it. We can add footer. So here we have privacy and cookies, terms of use. So here we can add links and sign in form. Yes, so here we can define the logo that will be displayed on the login page. So this is really, really powerful. And once we add everything here and we customize the look and feel, then it will be adjusted on the login page, which we will see in the demo application in a second. Here is another Formula Healthcare demo application. And this one, as I mentioned before, is secured by Microsoft Entra External ID for customers. From there, I will click login button and I'm redirected to the login page. This page is customized, as you can see. So there is Formula 5 logo added, custom background added, and also in the future, more customization will be possible. So from there, I can create new account if I do not have one, and I will have to go through the set of steps. So I have to provide my email, then verify this email with the code that is sent to this email, and then additional attributes are collected from the user, and then customer account is created. But I've already created an account, so I want to sign in instead. So here I will use my test account that I created, and I will click next button. Once I provided my email, here I have to provide password, obviously, but also I have this possibility to reset my password. So I can click forgot password, and then I will go through the forgot password process. So from there, I will provide my password. I will click sign in button. I will accept sign in the application. So I will click yes. And now I'm successfully redirected to my portal. And as you can see, there is my first name, last name is Daniel Tester. As I mentioned, it's a test account. And also there is a patient ID included here. And this one is taken from the external system and then injected into the token. So that's it. Here it is. This is the demo about Microsoft Entra External ID. And I think that it's really, really promising. I'm waiting for more features to be added to the platform, but I feel like this is really, really good way, and fingers crossed for the new platform. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found it interesting and helpful. If you still have any questions, please leave the comment or contact me directly using the email displayed on the screen. I also encourage you to subscribe to this channel and to visit our insights blog under formula5.com. Thank you so much again, and see you in the next videos.